So, hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Clone Star Podcast. I am your host, Seo Hurley, and joining me this week is my co-host, Mike Overton. Mike, how are you?
I am good, thank you, Sho.
And this week, we're absolutely delighted to welcome a lady of stage and screen who has been in 13 episodes of Star Trek Voyager, 2 episodes of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, was briefly in an episode of The Next Generation, but it got left on the cutting room floor, unfortunately, has been in a variety of different Star Trek incarnations as well. We are delighted to welcome the wonderful Martha Hackett to the show. Martha, welcome to you.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Martha, quick question for you. Before we had brought you onto the show, I was talking to Mike, and Mike said Seska is one character that he absolutely cannot stand. Yet, when we talk to you, you're this lovely, charming person. Yet, when you play Seska, it was a very different person that we saw on screen. For you as an actor, how important is it to try and get to the humanity of a, for want of a better term, say, bad character?
Well, yeah, that's important. I mean, you have to look at it from your character's point of view. So then it's all easy as long as you're not judging your character. I didn't judge Seska's moves. I saw them as necessary for what she wanted to accomplish. She was a great spy. She did that very well. And every turn she took was to get home, right? To get back. And plenty of people on board didn't disagree with that. So yeah, that's the fun thing. I mean, how it manifests is, you're going back into who a character is. And, in this case, what race is she, and, why is she there in the first place as a spy? So, for the good of country, so to speak, she did what she did. So, I mean, and I actually find it it's more fun to play a darker character than a goody two shoes. I mean, in my experience, not like I've played a lot of goody two shoes, to be fair, but it's more complicated, and you have to see it from a point of view that isn't close to you necessarily, and that's the challenge. So.
And Martha, and going back to all the way to the start, where did the love of acting come from? Like, did you grow up in a creative household, or did you yourself just kind of want to kind of get involved in it?
I grew up in a very large household, so lots of people did lots of different things. But as a little girl, I could sing. I was a decent little singer from very little. So that performative side, started early. My mother would say, why don't you sing for us? And, my sisters would say, sing that song again, so that kind of thing. But then I started doing plays at school very young, like third grade. I had a large role in an operetta and it was great. It was Hansel and Gretel, which is a complicated little operetta. And the first time for this personality, right, for a personality of someone who ends up becoming or being an actor, the first time you're out on stage doing what you've been told to do or what you've learned to do, and you're a little bit terrified, but nobody else knows that in some cases. And then suddenly, people are roaring approval. It's that's it. You're done and dusted. You're off.
You got hooked in by the kind of the adulation of the crowd kind of thing, is it?
Well, it's what it is. It's not just adulation; it's confirmation that what you're doing is effective. Whether you want to call it a talent or a calling or whatever, but what you're doing it heart and soul, and it's working. Yeah. It's effective, and to feel that when you're whatever I was, 9 or 10, it's an unusual feeling. Oh, this is, I'm good at this. I mean, I suppose some children feel that with athletics and I felt it in school too. I was a good student, but when we're little, we kind of are doing things for, what's the word? Not just admiration. It's more, that your parent approves or that you're doing the right thing, so anyway, that was the beginning.
And did you kind of like when you were going into high school and things like that, did you keep up the kind of the drama club and things like that? Or did you kind of say, do you know what, this is just a passing phase. I better kind of, I'm looking at a different career when I get older.
No, well, I did everything. I played sports, I did theater, I did chorus, I did musicals, I did, clubs and things. I was a little bit overachieving, I would say. And then I went to college, and I went to a college, luckily, I would say, that didn't have a theater arts department, but it had a ton of theater happening, mostly, student facilitated theater. And I did a lot of that. I was in a rock and roll band. I was in 2 rock and roll bands. So I was always out there. And, but I was majoring in English, and I thought, oh, I don't know, maybe I should write, I don't know what I'm going to do. But then, graduation came around, and honestly, I sat myself down and thought, what can I not live without? What can I not put aside?
Yeah.
And performing was one thing I couldn't put aside. And that my mother was very disappointed, because she thought I should go to business school, which is just sort of a bizarre thing that came out of nowhere. But I understand where my mother was coming from now. I understand that.
Having become a parent yourself, you suddenly see the other side of it.
Exactly. Don't waste your education, please. I think it was an avocation. It's not your vocation, which also kind of rung in my head on the, during the hard spells, as an actor, which are many.
And say, like in all the years that you were kind of going through this then, Martha, like who were some of your inspirations that you kind of looked up to in terms of, say, actors, actresses, playwrights, even musicians that you kind of, as you were in 2 rock bands and things like that, who were the kind of artists that stood out for you?
Well, I had a very strange array of sort of inspirations. And when I was a little girl, I know this sounds very strange, but I was obsessed with Glenda Jackson. Because on American TV, we had the Masterpiece Theater of Glenda Jackson being Elizabeth I.
Yeah.
And I watched all of those sort of literally on repeat. And, they were staged, you know what I mean? It was almost like filmed stages in a sound studio. They weren't, but she just, if she's on screen, you can't watch anybody else. And I loved her, and I loved her power, and also her fearlessness. She was not afraid to be unpleasant, to be strong, to be powerful. And I thought that was very interesting when I was a little girl, because, normally, the rest of my idols, I guess, were beautiful screen stars, like Natalie Wood. When I was a little girl, I thought there was no one more beautiful in the world. She was in West Side Story, and she's in that movie with Robert Redford. And, those are 2 very opposite, movie stars. But then I loved all kinds of music, and I loved singing along with Michael Jackson when I was little.
Me too.
And I thought he was immensely talented, Michael Jackson. And so I tried to learn how to sing from him. But then as I grew older, I'm still a huge Joni Mitchell fan, because she's sort of a complete artist. And then later I morphed into the sort of Chrissie Hynde vibe, because I love Chrissie Hynde, who's also a really interesting character of The Pretenders.
How good is the singing voice still to this day, Martha? I'm not going to ask you to sing now. Don't worry. I'm not putting you on the spot like that.
I actually think it's better. It's better than it used to be. I think I've cleaned up some bad habits.
What were the bad habits you had?
Not external singing habits.
Yes.
Yeah. Not the drink and the drug. I didn't really. It wasn't that. Singing habits. And also these. I don't know how many years it's been, but I do crazy vocal things. In the car, when I'm alone in the house. Sort of operatic, weird things that I would never ever do. But it's like stretching yourself in some weird position that you aren't going to do, but it changes your voice. So I think but I don't really, I sing along with friends and jamming and stuff like that, but I don't do too much public singing. these
Now,
days.
just out of curiosity, you say you're a good singer still, but if we were to ask your kids, what would the response be from them?
I don't think they've ever really appreciated my singing. But I do think that I imposed it on them a little too much. But you know, I used to think like, oh, I'm really imposing my music in the car on the way to school on my children way too much. However, my kids have really interesting eclectic taste, and you know, they're well versed in the music of the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and even the 60s. So
You
I
take a
think
bit
the
of
job
small bit
well
of
done.
credit for that.
I
Yeah,
take total
exactly.
credit for that.
But also, as the driver, tough luck.
Yeah.
They have to listen to whatever you want to listen to, you know.
And I did indulge them because I did learn a lot about their music, and they had their phases which were kind of intolerable for me in some instances, but then I understood it more. I saw that, you know, my second son Francis went through it. He's well versed in rap, and it's not that I don't like rap, but I'm selective about it, you know, and so there was some stuff that I just rejected, but other I've grown to appreciate it. And he's also morphed out of that. He's turned his back a little on some things. So it just takes time.
Yeah, I mean, I know growing up so I've got a younger brother that's 2 years below me. And I remember back in like my early teens, so he was like 9, 10, he was into heavy metal. And that
Yeah.
lasted for about 2 years. And then it went to very hardcore rap. And now it's just phased out to a little bit of everything.
Yeah, yacht rock,
Yeah.
right? There are some gems in there.
Yeah, there's definitely some gems that could do a polishing in there as well.
Yeah. Well, Francis now, I mean, it took him a long time to find this album. He knew about it and he'd heard it, and he searched and searched on the internet, and he paid some really ungodly sum to get this album of Japanese jazz from the 70s. It's a particular artist that I can't name for you now. And I love this record. And so I feel like this kid has taken quite a journey, you know, in opening his brain to different kinds of music.
She was especially Japanese jazz. It's not
Japanese
exactly
jazz
kind
in
of
the 70s. It's very cool.
I'm now going to be looking up Japanese
Japanese
jazz.
jazz, yeah, exactly.
Actually, if he walks in, I'll ask him for the artist name, or I'll email you the artist's name because
because my sister-in-law is actually Japanese, and there's a new movie coming out in the next couple of weeks about specifically a Japanese jazz band. And
what's the name of that?
I actually have to check it out because I don't know. But when I find out, I'll let you know, Martha. Because when I spoke to my sister-in-law, she said he's a very famous Japanese jazz musician. So she's really kind of looking forward to seeing it. So I said that's one to tell your son is coming out now as well. But I'll find it and I'll let you know.
Well, my son was taking Japanese a few years ago, and this lovely lady, young lady, was teaching him Japanese, and they were trying to have a conversation about music or something, and she asked him what musicians he liked, and he named this guy, and she was stunned. And she's young, so it wasn't, it's not her music, but she was like, "Oh, you know who that is." Like so many things, the Japanese, if they decide to do something or take it up, they honor it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
They honor the pursuit of jazz or the pursuit of whiskey making, or they honor it, and it's
a very kind of different culture. Like I find my sister-in-law, if I ever ask her a question, like the word thanks is said back to me about 1,000 times. Like even the smallest gesture is so welcomed with such genuine kind of heartfelt appreciation that you've actually offered it. Martha, getting back then to your journey as well. So obviously in high school, we've had a bit of a kind of development in this and that. What did you study when you went to college, say?
I studied English. It was actually called English and American Literature and Languages, which is the American language. No, it was interesting. It was great. But I took one of my favorite classes, which was a basic class, but I didn't take it until my senior spring. And had I taken it earlier, I would have, and this professor was pretty famous. in the field. Had I taken it earlier, I might have gone down that path a little more with him. And it was Chaucer. It was a study of all Chaucer's writings in Middle English.
Oh,
And I just loved it. I just ate it up. So it's funny because it's kind of a puzzle.
Yeah.
You know, you're figuring out the language and what it would translate to now and what the stories were. And, you know, it's sort of at the time when novels are just beginning, but these long prose poems are telling you so much, you know, history, religion, life. So anyway, I ate it up, and it wasn't until later that I realized, oh, if I'd only taken that earlier, I might have gone down that road, but I didn't.
what road do you think you would have gone down had you kept on studying it?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know, but it's kind of has a folklore side to it, you know? So, and there was a major at the college I went to that I also regret not looking into, which was called folklore and mythology, because you cover so much. That's you know, you're covering literature, history, religions, you know, I mean, it's very broad, but English is a great preparation for what I do.
I often found that studying English in school, that it was only years later that I really got an appreciation for what was being written, because with the benefit of life experience, suddenly, you know, different poems or stories you would have read make a lot more kind of sense to you. But when you're young and you're reading them, it's kind of, I don't understand this because I can't get into the emotional space in my own head because I haven't kind of lived through that kind of situation.
Right. Yeah, you don't know the context it's being written
Yes,
yet.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Or
there was
even
a,
how to read it. You have to learn how to read poetry in a way. I mean, and
it's
to know
not.
what kind of poem it is. And,
yeah.
you know, but no, I know. And English, let's just say English as a major, it's an enormous subject. And you know, you're doing this broad overview, and there's no way, especially when you're adding American literature. So we also studied, we had to take a course in the Bible for this major, and then to work your way through Puritan writing, all, you know, there's just so much you couldn't cover it all.
Hang
I
on a
mean, from
second.
Shakespeare to the Puritans to, you know.
You
So
didn't have to read the whole Bible now for that course, did you, by any chance?
no, but it was called Bible. It's not Bible study, it was Bible. But the benefit for me is that, I mean, for this class, I was raised Catholic and I went to Catholic school.
Yeah.
So I had a handle on the New Testament. The Old Testament was something less explored for me. So I kind of had to focus more on that. And a friend of mine who was not had to take the class too, and she was not raised in any faith. And she was just, oh my God. I mean, she was overwhelmed.
What is this book?
She was overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's not exactly a light read, is it?
Yeah, it's not. It's not. And also, there are really different versions.
Yeah.
Let's face it. They're different.
Yeah.
And so, thus the many interpretations we have of the Bible.
And at this point in your life then, Martha, were you looking kind of more at a kind of career going forward on the stage, or were you more looking towards the screen in terms of TV or movies?
Well, you know, I love theater, but I was always expecting I would just do everything.
Right.
You know, I just expect I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. You know, you're kind of starry-eyed and open, and I still think that. But I did a play starting last January, working on it, start through January, and then it actually played for a very long time into the strike, into the actors' strike that we had here, and I just realized how much I love being on stage. It's where I feel most free, and that might have to do now at this point where I have not worked a lot in TV and film. I mean, I worked a little, but not a lot in the last few years. Yeah. So, you know, the further you get away from it, the further you get away from it. It's as simple as that. It is a different muscle.
Yeah.
So, but I just feel like I'm probably going to do a little bit of everything moving forward. I mean, this is not a career or a job rather that I need to retire from. I don't, you know.
So at this point in your life, when you were younger and you said, I can do everything, was that kind of more youthful kind of, I can't be stopped? Or is that more Martha Hackett's internal, nothing on earth can stop me from what I want to achieve?
No, it's probably the youthful thing because, you just don't know, you just don't understand the business.
Yes.
I didn't understand the business and, at all. I mean, I was very naive in certain ways and, I expected that, oh, well, once I got an agent, the agent's going to line me up for all the, all the balls I need to hit. Like, and I didn't have a keen business sense. That sort of came to me much more slowly over time, the hard way. And I at the time, although I felt like I was working very hard and doing everything I was supposed to do, I didn't really, sorry, my cat's going to talk to us. I didn't really know.
What's the cat's name?
The cat's name is Bowie.
Bowie.
He's 21.
Not
he's
David Bowie, is it?
Well, we did name him after that, but the truth is we probably just should have named him David. When you see him, you'll see why. No, he's 21 though, and he looks rather very well for a 21-year-old cat, but
Oh my word.
has a little bit, he's deaf. And he has a little bit of cat dementia. And so he
What?
makes all kinds of upsetting sounds, but he doesn't hear himself. And sometimes I think he thinks that I'm not responding to him. I'm
He just
talking
can't
to
hear
the
it.
wall. Yeah. And I scare him sometimes when I come up behind him because he doesn't hear. Because oh,
Oh,
poor
bless
thing.
him.
What kind of cat is he, Martha?
He's just a tabby cat. He's great though. I rescued him. Yeah.
Aw.
He's lovely. And my other 20-year-old cat passed away last Christmas. So
Oh.
he's been
Aw.
alone for a year. Yeah.
Oh, bless. So,
Yeah. And that cat was Ash.
Ash,
Ash lives on.
so what do you think you've learned along the way then about the industry? Because you were saying that early on you were quite naive. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I
back-
was naive about how much kind of, in a way, hustling I had to do for myself.
Right.
And honestly, I thought that was kind of like, unappealing, unattractive. I didn't really know how to do that either. I didn't know how to kind of put myself out there. I was taking class, I was doing my auditions like a good girl, and I was very prepared. I was super prepared. I went on sets, but I just didn't know how to launch that beyond, I didn't know how to, I stayed with various agents for very long periods of time when probably I shouldn't have, that kind of thing. I didn't have a business acumen for it. There he is. Come here, buddy. Meet everybody. Because I didn't think honestly that was my job. I was interested in the craft.
Yeah.
That was about it. Although I knew a lot about the business and I would, read the trades very regularly. And I felt like I knew how movies were made and finance and TV too, and the roll of the dice on things. But in terms of being an actor, I mean, I guess it's just, maybe if I'd known more, I might have quit, honestly.
Yes, yeah.
Because, in some ways you don't want to know that. And sometimes I see these young actors and they hit early. And bless their hearts, they need good, excuse me, I'm just going to bring them up here. It's like, yeah, no, you're going to come up and meet everybody because that way you'll be quiet.
Oh my word, looking for you now. Oh
Yeah.
yes.
See, look at
Oh.
that. Yeah. So he just, I know. What do you think about it? What's your opinion? So,
Exactly. Couldn't agree more.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I might have, tossed in the towel had I kind of known how harsh it can be.
There's a very kind of dark side to the industry. I'm good because again, like I'm not in the industry, Mike isn't in the industry. We can only go by what we've read, but obviously you've kind of gone through it, and there's obviously so much more complexity to it than I suppose any of us can really kind of understand.
Yeah. Well, for example, and I'd done other shows, some TV before I entered the Star Trek universe. And I loved working on the show for lots of reasons. I loved everyone I worked with. I loved the crew. I loved really learning my way around a camera. The shows are very, very, they're very tight and specific about your moves and blocking, and for good reason. The show had a certain look. It's in another, realm, and very efficiently made. And so I was learning so much. And my agent at the time said, it's too bad because it's not really, what did he call it? He said, what did he say? He said, the business doesn't really pay attention to these shows. And I said, what? What do you mean? And he said, well, the casting directors aren't watching these shows for talent. They're watching NYPD Blue, or they're watching LA Law at the time, or they're not really looking, for people on the show. And he said, and, you're in these costumes. He was happy to, get his percentage, but he said, you're in these masks and these costumes. So you're not leaping off the screen to be in a show that other people are casting. He said that the fans are watching the show, but it's not. That'll pass, but he's just yowling. Exactly. I know, it's terrible. and later I kind of realized he was right, but that didn't matter to me. And then during that time, during playing Seska, I did get pregnant and have my first son. And I thought I was just starting. And then that was a big pause. It was hard to get out there again. I mean, not that I was not willing to, but it just was like, oh, kind of the air went out of it, and it didn't launch me. And I, not like I'm saying it should have, I'm not saying that. Just, you just have to keep at it. And every entrance you see, every possible entrance. And having children, it did slow me down because I had something more important to do. Time. And it just that's what it is.
And
so do you feel that you kind of gravitate to specific roles?
I gravitate to work. Honestly, I will do anything. I will do almost anything. I've played, as you may know, I've played serial killers.
Yep.
A serial killer. I've played mothers. I've played distressed widows. I've played powerful people. I've played evil queens on stage. I've played very comic roles. I've played people from other countries. I love working. I love working. And so, and I had this wonderful English acting teacher who said really the most powerful tool for an actor is their imagination. And your imagination can fire up everything. It fires up your brain, your body, your soul, everything. And he said, it's really the most reliable, tool you have. And I really believe that. I mean, I know that ultimately all actors are put into kind of a wheelhouse, this is the types you play, but I mean, I've stretched and I've done different things. So, but, people do, you become a type or something. And actually at some points in my career, I've had people say to me, let's say when I was trying to meet different agents, some of them would say, or a casting director, I think it was a casting director who said this to me. She goes, well, you're quirky. You're kind of quirky. And, that sounds like a good thing. But
is that a good thing or a bad thing?
But yeah, you rarely do see a breakdown that says she's quirky. That means you're a little unusual, or you're you're not. We can't put you in a slot that easily. I mean, to me, that's great, but I have no regrets at all. I have a great life, and I continue to work. So. But I didn't have did I have a master plan? No, I had a master fantasy about what it would be, because I thought it would just be easier. I thought if I showed up, knew my lines, did them pretty well, people responded to it, that it would just flow. And or would come my way, and it would just happen that way. And it didn't at all. So, and I think that's probably more the way it is for most actors.
Yeah.
And say, Martha, with regards to, as you said, you played so many different characters, so many different motivations, so many different situations they'd be in and all that. What's your approach to each different character? That, like, is it the same approach you have in terms of trying to find, say, the humanity in the character, or do you tailor it depending on kind of what the situation and the role demands?
Well, it sort of depends on how much information I have. I mean, in a play, often you have a lot of information, but you still have to do a kind of deep dive into a background. Sometimes with a TV script or a small role in a film or a TV show, you're not given that.
Yeah.
So you really need to create something for yourself and bring your own experience to bear. Instead of putting something on and just, those are kind of the hardest things. The hardest things I've ever done are one brief scene in a movie or a TV show, because on set, nobody really cares too much about you. You're kind of like, they need you in there and they got to get it done.
Yeah.
And it's up to you. It's up to you to do something with it, but not too much, because then, they don't want you to do too much. Those are really the trickiest things. And you don't have an extended working experience with the director or the other actors.
Yeah.
You got to show up and do it. And those are big challenges. And I've done them, but they're hard. But my approach is, it's been different over the years, but I start with the text I'm given, and then any other information I can gather. And then the special spice or sauce or whatever is just a lot of dreaming like, well, who is this person? How did they end up here? And what's the backstory? And that's not stuff you play necessarily.
Yeah.
It's just like water in the tank, right? It's just to have. And
I suppose it gives you a foundation to work from then as well, doesn't it?
Right, because it makes you a human being. You've got to be a human being, and or an alien. It's a pet.
Or a Cardassian
or a
secretly
specter.
disguised as a Bajoran.
I was a ghost on stage once. So, yeah, and honestly, that's what makes it rich and fun. And I mean, it's like it's a sandbox, right? I get to play and
yeah. And
So-
Martha, sorry, go on, Mike.
Well, I was going to say, so moving into the Star Trek realm, were you a fan growing up?
Totally. That show was on in the, my older brother, I'm from a very big family. I'm the 9th of 10.
Oh my word.
Wow.
Yeah. So, let's not get into that. But my brother Mark, who was older, how many years older? 7 years older. He had built the models of the Enterprise, and they were hanging from, the little invisible like fish line.
wire.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had all these things, and but the show was on the original show. I grew up on the original show over and over and over again, because that's all we had.
Yeah.
But so when did Next Generation premiere?
87.
87, yeah.
But I missed the boat originally on that, because I was working so much in shows at night,
Yeah.
plays. I was doing play after play after play after play. And back then, in the olden times, we didn't yet have ways to record things, or,
Martha,
I'm not kidding.
the reason I'm laughing is, I said it to Mike when we recorded our last interview, is that there's always a moment in our interviews where we somehow age ourselves horribly in some shape or form. So exactly as you said, I remember the days where if you didn't tape it, that was it. You couldn't watch it again until it was rerun at some point.
Yeah, but we had no ways to tape it yet, right?
Oh my word, it's even worse.
Well, I don't think I did, or I didn't have, the acumen. So all of that was a revelation, and I was late to the party of the DVR thing or whatever. You remember? I mean, that was the first iteration where you could do it. I was late to everything. And so I kind of missed it. And then it was suddenly this massive success. And I thought, I've got to watch this. But, whatever, 5, 6 seasons in, you really need to see that first season to do that. I mean, I jumped in, but, and And then Deep Space Nine premiered, and I caught a few of those. And I went, this is really good. This is a great show. So, and I was seen for Dax. This is a story I've told too many times, but I did audition for Dax, and it was from there that I was seen for other things.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And were you sad that you missed out on getting Dax?
Oh yeah. I mean, so of course, because the character was originally described in the breakdown for the audition, and I don't know if this changed in the scripts. I couldn't really track it because, again, I was working nights. I worked so much. But it was described as a wise ancient sage in the body of a young, attractive female. And I thought, this is so cool. This is like Yoda inside me, but without a funny voice. Like, this is so cool. I loved auditioning for that. There were a gajillion women being seen for that. And Terry's so beautiful. She's so beautiful. She was so right for it. But I did feel like, oh gosh, this has been awesome.
How different was your audition to what Terry Farrell eventually put on the screen?
I think I was probably, I mean, my recollection, I think I was probably much more serious.
Right.
I was maybe too Spock-like, or, you know what I mean? Just a little more, I used intelligence as the guiding force.
Yes, yeah.
In the scene. Intelligence and knowledge beyond. So the rest of this is not even occurring to me. You know what I mean? Like, it's, yeah, I think that's, and not that she did that, but she was lighter. She was lighter and maybe probably warmer than what I did in the audition. But I'm not saying that, I don't, who knows?
Yeah.
But she was funny, and as the character went on, and so.
So how did the cameo in the season finale of The Next Generation come about then, with All Good Things? Obviously, look, it was a deleted scene and things like that, but how, did they come back to you after you'd auditioned for Dax and say, we liked what you did, we'd like you to kind of do this role?
Yeah, they had me in for this scene. So the casting director, Junie Lowry Johnson, I had done, she had cast Hill Street Blues. And I had my first SAG job was as an attorney on 2 episodes of Hill Street Blues in the final season, and there was a strike, and so they had all these attorneys, and I think I had 1 line in each of 2 episodes, or maybe a couple lines in each of 2 episodes. I worked with this great actor, John Wesley, who's no longer with us. And so that's how Junie, one of Junie's associates, had seen me in a play at my at grad school. And that's how I got the job. And I got the job just weeks after I graduated, and I didn't have an agent. And I thought, well, this is easy. It was, well.
Agent, don't need one of those.
Yeah, and they made me SAG. I got into the union because of booking that job. So Junie knew me from there. And so she'd have me in, she had me in an NYPD Blue, but I didn't get that. So that's how she knew me. And yes, though, it was from Dax to the Tyrellian, and then that got cut. But Patrick Stewart was so lovely. My scene was on screen, and I had I don't know if you remember the finale. I'm sure you guys do, but I was shepherding a ship full of refugees from the planet that was getting attacked. I was saving them, but we were under fire, and I was asking for assistance or for a protective missile defender, some mechanics said, please help us. And having this conversation in that total makeup I was in, which was like, to get that head mold done, I'd never done anything like that. They cover you in saran wrap, and they put straws up my nose, and then poured a goop all over me. And I don't know if I had goggles on or no, I didn't. They had stuff over my eyes. And to take this head mask, make this head mask. And it was so intense. And it really took many, many, many hours to put on and paint because they did this beautiful job painting it, like incredible spray paint. And then I worked for about half an hour, but Patrick Stewart was so sweet. He came and he stood next to the camera and did the scene with me when he didn't have to, because it was an on-screen, shot that she's on, and he didn't have to after, it was a long day for him, many long days. And he was very kind to stand there and do the scene with me. And then I think I worked for half an hour, not even. And then it took about 7 hours to put the makeup on and then 5 to take it off because they want to save the pieces.
Yeah.
They just want to save they call them applications. And, and I thought, oh, it was a long day, but not much on camera. So it's sad to see that not be in, but they shot a lot.
Did you only find out that it wasn't in when you actually saw the final episode, or did they tell you in advance?
Indeed.
Oh, really?
Oh, so there's no heads up or anything?
No.
Oh.
That's not common. I mean, that is common, rather. That's common.
Yeah.
That you never know.
Oh, Lord, that's awful. So how did Voyager then come about then, Martha, from there? Again, obviously now at this point you've auditioned for Dax.
No, then I did Deep Space. I played...
Oh, sorry, yes.
No, that's
Tarul, of course, yes.
I played Tarul, who was so different than,
I like
than anything else I'd seen before, for. Yeah, the other characters, like, both Dax and this Tyrellian was very compassionate and sweet almost, I thought. And Tarul was, feisty. I love Tarul. A lot of fun.
Funny. I was saying to Seo just before you joined the call, I was watching the episode you first appeared on earlier, and I remember your lines as well, which was, "I know exactly who you are. I'm not here to make friends," and then you walk off.
Exactly. There was no nonsense about Tarul.
Hello, it's great.
Yeah, but she was smart.
Yeah.
And those episodes, I'm forgetting the director's name right now. She's on my resume. This woman was directing this episode, and never had an episode been directed so energetically with the cameras moving and the ship's getting rocked in that way.
Yes.
It was really fun. It was really fun. But I think at the time it was an education for the crew. They were like, what? And she said, just move it, just do this and do that. And it worked. Those episodes, I don't think anything had looked like that before, because they were some of the first episodes of that season.
It was the first episode 1 and 2 of season 3. But yeah, like when the attack is happening, everything is moving like crazy, like you've never seen in a Star Trek episode before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so how did you find it? Were you kind of there going, am I supposed to be moving like crazy here and getting knocked over the place? Or
well, yeah, she was telling us to do that. Yes, we did move, but the camera was doing more of the work for us. It was both. So I thought it looked terrific. I thought it looked great.
And how did you?
Kim Friedman.
Kim Friedman, exactly. Yeah. Kim. Yeah.
And how did you get on with the cast of Deep Space Nine when you were kind of interacting with them?
From my end, very well. I had a lot of fun. I have
to ask: is Avery Brooks as intense a man as we're all led to believe that he is?
He's intense in his work, but he was very open and kind as a person. I didn't. When I heard of that stuff a little bit later, like, I surprised me. Yeah. Committed actor, really good actor. I don't know why he's not on everything. I think he's so good.
Like when you see him in like American History X, and you see how absolutely brilliant and phenomenal he is, kind of there going, why is he not in more stuff? Like, but again,
I agree.
I suppose it goes back to the question, as you said earlier on, from what your agent said, like nobody is watching these shows. Like, so is it a case that you want?
Well, he'd been on that other show, the detective show set in Boston.
Fire. Yeah, a man named Hawk as well.
He was great in that show. Yeah. He was awesome in that show, and I tried to talk to him about that show because I'm from the Boston area, but he did not like working in Boston. But for good reason. But I mean, as his version of it. But that made me sad.
Did you get to chat to Colin Meaney? That's my next most important question.
I did, because not only because he was friendly and nice, but his brother-in-law James happened to be at the time my hairdresser.
What?
James is married to Colum's sister. James is Irish. They're
Yes.
all this whole Irish contingent that come to LA. So I had an Irish hairdresser for a long time. And I dropped his name. So as one would.
Oh my
And
word.
that worked out. And then John Frakes, I believe, directed my next episode.
Yeah.
And then Jonathan hired me for the Klingon game, the Klingon video game. So that was fabulous. That was later, but that was so fun.
How, why was that so much fun then? I think we've got the same glass, Martha. I was just looking at the glass you had there a second. Oh my God.
That's from the pub, yours.
No,
It's from IKEA.
This is from IKEA.
I love these glasses. They
If
stack
anything,
so well.
mine is from the pub. Mine happens to be
That's a very groovy pub glass. That's a very groovy pub glass.
Ironically, I'm drinking Pepsi out of a Pepsi glass. There you go.
So what made the video game so much fun?
Well, it was 5 days in a row.
Yeah.
Right.
5 jamming days. And it was just funny. I mean, all the guys, the regulars who played the Klingons were there, and then we just said, everybody's like over the top dressed in these I love being a Klingon, working on the language. And I actually felt really beautiful, oddly.
Well, in fairness,
I had all that hair. The hair was so fabulous, and the teeth, and talk about opera. Oh, it was fabulous.
So wait a second. You have to surely remember some of the Klingon lines you said from the game.
No, I don't. No, I know it was those. I don't remember a thing. And I was actually, did I know it? I was pregnant, and I didn't know it yet. So I know. It's kind of great. Was that? Yeah, that was it. Yep.
So hang on.
That was after I was Seska. That was during the time it was after I was Seska that I did that.
Yeah. So you've been a Cardassian, you've been a Bajoran, you've been a Klingon, you've been a Romulan, you've been a Tellarite. Which was the most annoying makeup to get on and remove?
Huh.
I'm going to go on with Tellarite.
Well, I mean, that was my first time, and I only did it once. So at the beginning of playing Seska full-blown, halfway Cardassian, the creature that there was only one iteration of it. I was sort of halfway back to becoming Cardassian. When we started with that makeup, because it takes a while for the makeup artist to figure out how to do it quickly.
Yeah.
And the first few weeks of working that, because it took a long time to put on, it took a long time to take off, because again, they want to preserve everything and be very careful with it. And those were long days in that big makeup. And so by the end of the day, I'm kind of like falling asleep or they're taking it off. That was the hardest. And it was a lot of glue on my skin above, because there's a whole piece that goes here into my eye.
So is that just one big piece that goes all the way around?
Yes.
Or is it broken up?
It was one big piece that went around, and then they attached the wig to the piece.
Right.
Okay.
So they had to do that separately. And then I had my neck pieces and my ears. There was something on my ears, or my ears, maybe my ears were covered by the hair. I can't remember. So, I mean, the least complicated makeup, of course, is the Bajoran.
Just on the nose.
I always had a makeup. I never had nothing.
So when you were being there as Seska, and you had to get the makeup on, what time did you have to show up to the makeup trailer at every morning?
It depended on when the day started. So, but the earliest call time I ever had for anything was playing Tyrul. And the call time was so absurd. And the head makeup artist, who wasn't doing the Tyrul makeup, because the Tyrul was hard because they used a lot of heavy yellow paint on my skin.
Yeah. So
I had that again, a whole brow, wig attached, ears, but the paint basically your skin did not breathe for the time you were, and it was a deep yellow. I mean, you can't really read it it doesn't really look as yellow. It's a sort of a mustard color on screen as it was. And my call time was just so crazy. I'm not exaggerating. It was something like 1:31 a.m. because the makeup took 3 hours, something, and they were pushing. They were or something like that, like 2 a.m. And they were what they were doing was they had gone late on Friday, Thursday night, so they had to push the call for the actors, the stars. So they had to call in everyone else who was, less star-like to have their makeup done and get them out of the way. Yeah. And then you'd be first up. And the lead makeup artist said to me, he goes, just wait, you won't work until later. Like they're doing this. No. And it was true. It was true. I was there, and then I had the makeup, and then I laid around. I tried to find a way to lay down in the little trailer I was in to rest, because I don't think I worked until like 11 a.m. It was dumb.
No.
I know. But you know what? That's what the job is. That's what it is. Yeah. You're not, it's not about you. So the production schedule is just a crazy thing, especially on a Friday when they've lost all this time. Yeah. And then we work until, like 4 a.m. on Friday. I always felt bad for the crew because
of course they're
there before us.
So when you had all the makeup on, you're waiting around for 10 hours. You obviously have to be very careful with your costume, with your makeup, in terms of so like, do you have to, as you were saying about like trying to be relaxed in a certain way, like were you told you can sit there but you can't sit in this way, or you can lie on that thing but you can't lie in a certain way, or what was it exactly?
Well, no one had to tell me that but I think with that costume, I might have sat up against the, wall in the trailer and tried to just rest. But also I was that, especially playing to rule. I think I was that young actor who thought I was always ready. I was always ready to go. I actually wanted to be around the set, and that I exhausted myself doing that. Yeah. I exhausted myself. I really just needed to go to the trailer and just close my eyes, just, work on your, look at your lines again and close your eyes and rest. And it took me a while to learn that, because I was like, wait, there's a saying in filmmaking and TV, it's hurry up and wait.
Very good.
And that's exactly what it is. But so I always was hurrying up, but I was always ready. I was ready. Come on. Aren't I up yet? Just thinking, I was like a little
dynamo,
golden retriever or something. Yeah.
So Martha, how did coming on Voyager then come about?
So I done to rule, and then Voyager was gearing up, and I read that they'd cast what's her name, the Canadian actress who I quite admire. I'm forgetting her name.
Genevieve Bujold?
Yeah, Genevieve Bujold. And then suddenly I get called in for a role that wasn't clearly defined. And just this member of the Maquis on the ship, but just kind of not really clearly defined. And as it turned out, a friend of mine named Ken Biller, he and I used to go to the same coffee shop in the neighborhood, and I had just booked the job. And we were having coffee, and he was he was working his way in Hollywood to be a writer. We were hired on Voyager the same week. I said, I just got a job. He said, what? I just got a job in the writer's room. So, and Ken would, he'd sneak things. He'd say, she's in the Maquis, but we don't know what's going to happen with her. See, he never told me anything he shouldn't tell me, but he goes, well, we just don't know what we're doing with her yet. And I said, okay. So it wasn't clear yet that I was going to be a spy.
But I
was sort of lightly involved with Chakotay.
So at what point then were you told that Seska would end up being a bad person?
In your opinion.
And, well, okay.
I'm joking.
Okay, hang on. I just want to get something out here. At no point, when Sho said earlier that I hate Seska.
I didn't say hate now. I never
just want
said
to
the word
point
hate.
out.
It's a strong word.
No, it is. But I think I hate I don't hate the character. I like the character, but I hate what she does.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that to a point, is a testament to your acting.
Thank
Because it is so well done, and that's why every time I watch Voyager, my blood boils
Well,
when I see
I
Seska.
have two stories about the hackles that Seska would raise in the back of people's necks when they'd see my name go across that I was on the show. But I can save those till the end.
Yes.
But they're two good stories.
Actually, as Mike was saying there, bad character. When we always write notes before our interviews. So the exact question is, at what point were you told that Seska would be, and I put inverted commas, bad character?
Well, let's just say that every great drama needs great conflict.
Yes, absolutely.
You can't just have a happy-go-lucky unless you want a comedy. But even a comedy requires conflict.
Yes.
So I didn't know until the pages came. It was like also my death. My death was, a matter of pages changing over a 48-hour period. First the baby dies and I live. I die, the baby lives. We both live, and then I die, the baby lives. And
so
whatever
somewhere
happened
there's
to that
86 different versions of the script.
Exactly, and it happens so quickly. But just suddenly, as the story developed, where there's a division between the Maquis is getting crabby, then we see her become more, tricky and manipulative with, as we know, the the engineering room. And so it just developed as I think the storyline developed. Like, who will we have kind of, and it was great to have a spy mixed in with the Maquis, because the Maquis weren't entirely trusted, really.
Yeah.
By the Federation completely. They were considered a little bit outliers, let's say,
Well, I was going to say the episode Worst Case Scenario really picks that up. Because, that's not until the end of season 3. Yeah. So we're almost sort of 3 years in at this point, and they're still, not being trusted. Partly down to Seska's holographic appearance. But yeah.
And Torres, I think we're supposed to not be sure about her.
Yeah.
But guess what? It's her girlfriend. It's her friend.
Actually, one of the things that struck me last night when I was rewatching the episodes is because of the way that the Kazon kind of society is, and say a woman has kind of no place in it. I really enjoyed how Seska was constantly telling, Maj Kutta what to do, saying, "We've destroyed the Federation shuttle. Have you checked? Are you sure?" And I was kind of there going, this is one of those memes you'd see on Instagram where it's a man is told to do something and then he doesn't do it. When he's asked to confirm it afterwards, he doesn't have any way of confirming it. And I loved how, in your strengths, Martha, that you brought to the role, it was kind of, I don't care about your stupid culture. I'm going to tell you what needs to be done in this situation.
Well, and she could do that as long as other Kazon weren't really around.
Yeah.
But if Kazon were around, he would get humiliated and feel emasculated. But the truth is, Seska was the brains and the Kazon were the brawn, because they weren't that clever.
No.
They're not, so they weren't wily enough. And
if they were clever,
I needed muscle.
Yes, exactly. So in terms of, say, the cast then that you had worked with, I asked you obviously about the DS9 cast. What were the Voyager cast like to be around?
Fantastic. Really fun. Well, starting with Kate, we'll talk about inspirational. They're so hardworking, so professional, always prepared. She knew your lines. She knew everybody's lines. She's a pro. And I thought she was great and fun to be around, funny, but hardworking. So, at the end of the day, Robert was great and fun, and we had a lot of fun. All the Roberts.
I was about to say which one, because I did have 3, yeah.
Robbie was fun. I didn't get to work with Robbie directly so much, not too much.
Yeah.
Garrett and Robbie, I've really grown close to, doing their little show too. And I see Garrett a lot at conventions. Robbie not so much lately, but because he's so busy. But Yeah, everybody was wonderful and great to work with, and the crew was really, really great. It was a family kind of show. I mean, it really was. I think that's why the show, um, it was an efficient show. That show got done in time. It wasn't at least on the seasons I was on. I don't know about the rest of it. It was a great place to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike, I'm looking at you because I looked at you were about to ask a question, and
No,
I've interrupted you about twice, so I was there.
No, go on.
To what you change.
I did have a question, but I'm going to hang fire for the moment.
Okay. Looking back, Martha, what were some of the highlights? Say, not necessarily some of the highlights in terms of, say, you being on screen. What were some of the highlights of being on the Voyager set in your time there?
Oh, there's so many. The highlights.
I think from a Star Trek fan's point of view, we kind of all want to feel that the actors get on as well as the characters on the show get on. So when you say it was a good, fun set, I think it warms everyone's heart to know that like there was no sniping in the background. Everyone got on in the spirit of that you'd hope they would.
In my experience, that was true. I didn't experience any sniping. I mean, I wasn't there every day, so but for my episodes, we just had a lot of fun. And I think one of the times that it was late on a Friday, I don't know, it was 2:00 in the morning. And, Robbie McNeil, everybody, the joking would start, the laughing, the breaking, people breaking into laughter, not being able to say the gobbledygook. And everybody was laughing, and Kate was laughing. And, it just made you feel like, oh, everybody's the same here. We're all exhausted, and, but it was fun and funny. And, that was one of my favorite moments. And, I guess I got a lot of support for my work on that show from folks in the show. And, it's a little bit of confirmation you need, okay, I'm doing the right thing. And because I was not, like I said, I wasn't a regular, I would come in and, do my thing here and there. And everybody was really kind and generous and great to work with. So I mean, I'd just say in general, it was a great place to go to work. And that makes a big difference.
So what were the sets like? Because
the sets were, you mean so the sets, there were some permanent sets, of course, the bridge. I mean, I don't know if you're asking about the particular sets or the feel of the set, and everybody, the crew.
Yeah, because I mean, there isn't too much information out there. There's not a lot of behind the scenes of the sets of Voyager. There's plenty from TNG, there's plenty from DS9, but there isn't an awful lot about the behind the scenes. So was it, I mean, yes, there's obviously permanent sets. I'm guessing engineering, sickbay, the bridge.
Exactly.
Was there a lot of, were they all joined up? Were they in little pods of their own, or?
No, we had, no, there were, I think we used 2 sound stages, but one in particular that had most of them. And then sometimes we went on location. I went, when I was Bajor and Seska, we went up to this place not so far from Paramount in the Hollywood Hills, where they had these old caves that they had done some, I don't know, Tarzan things or something, these local little caves. And that's the episode where we're all in the cave, Chakotay and I and Torres were all looking, that was fun. That's the day, that was a riotous day, because again, the show was really just gearing up at that point, and they'd already been through the 4 days of Geneviève, and then it was early on in those shows. And Robert, that was the day Robert split his jumpsuit from he stretched out and went and it was so funny. He was not embarrassed in the least. But everyone started laughing, and he's like, "Not me, it's the costume," that kind of thing. And we all got a laugh out of that.
Actually, Martha,
so that held up the day a little, but gotta get a new suit.
Yeah.
Actually, Martha, just that. So you've been in a Starfleet uniform, a Romulan uniform, and a Klingon uniform. Which was the most comfortable to wear?
and the Cardassian uniform and the
Yeah.
Torellians uniform.
Yes, of course.
Civilian clothing.
Yeah. I found that actually the one piece suits, they're hard to move around in for me. They were really tight around my neck, and just the
Ooh.
tight. They keep you really upright.
Yeah.
I had a lot on as Seska Cardassian, but it was comfortable. It was, these big coats and the belt and the pants and the but then when I came back as the hologram, that costume was gorgeous. So I looked like Seska Bajoran in a hairstyle that had never been seen. So I always think it was like Seska's fantasy of like, what would I look like if I really wanted to create this? What hairdo will I give myself? But that costume was really gorgeous.
Yeah.
And but it was years later, and I was a little leaner, I think. And then an old friend of my ex-husband's saw it for sale online. I didn't know about this. Years later, it was auctioned.
Yeah.
And he bought it. For what reason, I don't know. And then a few years later, he gave it to my sons, who surprised me and gave it to me for Christmas.
Oh, cool.
That's
I know.
awesome.
And I showed it on one of the Delta Flyers episodes.
Yeah.
But my sons were like, "Well, you wear it, won't you? Sometimes." I mean, you're gonna wear this thing. I said, "I really pretty sure I won't get into this." But it was like tiny. But then what happened was it's two different things. So like I had a pleather kind of pants that had been distressed.
Right.
And then this bodice with a belt and the pants. So I had it in a wardrobe bag, and they disintegrated.
Oh no!
Oh no!
They became like it was something from the distressing of the pleather, and they were like dust in the bottom of the wardrobe bag. And so I cut that up because it was sort of making a mess. And I thought, it's so interesting. It's like Seska's turning to dust, but it's from the bottom. It was kind of wild. So I still have the bodice, the top, but I don't have the leggings anymore. Now maybe I could squeeze into it.
Did it come with a
no boys, not going to be wearing it. Where to wear it? I don't know.
Did it come with the comm badge?
I think it did. Did I have a comm badge on?
In the hologram you did, yeah.
I must have. Yeah. I think, you know what? That's a prop, so I'm not sure. I'll go look at that. Good question, Mike.
Martha, what were the two stories you said you wanted to tell us?
I'm sorry? The two stories I was going to tell you. Okay, so I've told these before, I think so. Excuse me if I'm repeating myself, but so a friend of mine, this is when I was on the show. A friend of mine was walking down the street in New York City, in Manhattan, and two doormen are out on the sidewalk having a conversation, and he's walking by and he hears them say, "Did you see that episode last night?" And the other guy said, "Yeah, that's Seska. She's a badass." And when my friend came home and told me that story, I said, that's the best compliment I could ever get from two doormen in New York City that are watching Star Trek Voyager. But the other story, and I told this to the guys on Delta, on Starfleet Delta. Anyway, but I don't know if it was recording. So there's a Japanese restaurant in Hollywood that I hadn't been to in many, many years. And then I think hands had changed. And I went in one night, no one was in there. Fantastic food, very simple, basic place, but the food was incredible. And when I was paying my check, the woman who had waited on me, she said, she was handing me the check very politely. And she said, "You are Seska?" And I said, "Yes," because she had my name from the charge card.
Yeah.
And then she said, she's pointing to the sushi chef. She said, "My husband, he watches the show every day." And I said, "Really?" And he came, by then he'd come out from behind the sushi bar, and he stood there with his arms crossed. He looked very cross. He's one of those, sort of moody sushi chefs. And he said, shook his head, and he was shaking his head, and I said, I know, you love to hate me. And he said, you are a very bad person. But now when I come in, we're all friendly. So it was very funny, very funny. He's a huge Voyager fan.
Martha, would you ever like to come back to Star Trek in some shape or form?
Oh, yeah. Who wouldn't? Of course. Yeah.
Of the new series that take place, most people would say Lower Decks, but would you say Lower Decks, or would you look for, say, Prodigy because it has Janeway, it has Chakotay in it, and all that kind of thing?
Oh God, that's a hard question. I guess I'd have to go with Prodigy. But I also love to come back as something completely different. But I think I'm so established as Seska.
Seska.
Yeah, so they'd have to, reinvent me yet again.
Well, we could be looking at another Jeffrey Combs.
Yeah, he's the winner, right? He's winner take all.
Oh yeah, completely. Yeah. Like every single character has been played by Jeffrey Combs at some point.
We are all played by Jeffrey Combs. Did you not know?
He even did a version of me at some point. Yeah, he's a riot.
And Martha, you're back doing theatre. Things like that. Yeah. Like, do you hope to are you doing any TV work at the moment, or is it just all on the stage at the minute?
Well, right now I'm not.
Yeah.
Right now, I mean, I'm not currently employed to do TV, but I don't have a job right at this second anyway. But I would do it in a minute. I feel I'm ready to do TV.
And how much do you love doing the theatre?
I love doing the theater. It's so funny because, it really doesn't pay and too much, and it's hard to make a living, but I really feel happiest on stage. And I fear it's a dying art only because COVID just slammed it, and it's hard to get people to be in a theater. And, the audience just gets older and older, and, you're not getting enough young people in, but I feel happiest. And I still feel it's the most immediate, powerful form of storytelling for an audience member too. Yeah. I don't know if you guys have ever gone to the theater, if you've had a great experience at the theater. Yeah. It's unlike anything else. Yeah. You have a great experience in the theater. Of course it is. And also it's a communal experience. Like, I love to go to the cinema. I've been going to the cinema as much as possible this year. I don't know about you, but there have been so many good movies, and having the experience with a group is really different. So
what's your favorite movie from last year in the cinema?
This year that, there's so many. Gosh, I loved The Anatomy of a Fall.
Haven't seen it yet. It's supposed to be very good.
Yeah. And I love the other movie that actress is in, which is really terrifying, called The Zone of Interest, another European film. I just saw The Holdovers, which I love.
Oh, it's so good, isn't it? It's brilliant.
So good. I loved Past Lives. Beautiful little movie.
Haven't seen it yet. Yeah, it's supposed to be
really
brilliant.
Special movie. I don't think you'll be able to see it in the cinema, but it was worth seeing on the cinema because a low budget movie that was shot beautifully, showing you another side of New York City. Really, really nicely done. I'm going to be forgetting so many movies that I've seen this year that I've loved. I saw a very odd Finnish film the other day, but it was odd, but I liked it. It was very strange, called Fallen Leaves. Very unusual movie, kind of an homage to old movies too. I haven't seen Killers of the Flower Moon yet. It's on my list.
Oh, it's very good.
I love Barbie. I loved so Oppenheimer. Good. I didn't see them on the same day, but they're both, I think they're both, incredible feats of filmmaking, both of them. Did you guys see Oppenheimer?
100%. Yeah. You saw it, Mike, didn't you?
I never got to see it in the cinema, but I have since watched it.
Imagine it in the cinema. That sound design was crazy.
I mean, I have a pretty good home cinema, so it will be. It's close, but it's still not the same. But yeah, I'm there in London. They have the BFI IMAX.
Oh yeah.
And occasionally they will bring some stuff back. So I'm hoping that they will put Oppenheimer on.
They actually are, Mike. Yeah, they're bringing it back out for a limited release. Yeah. Actually, Martha, I have a recommendation for you for a new movie that's coming out. And you're there going, oh, yes. It's called All of Us Strangers.
I want to see that. It's here now.
Oh, is it? Yeah, Paul
Yeah,
Mescal
yeah.
and Andrew Scott. Yeah,
Andrew Scott. He's so
Yeah.
talented.
Yeah, he's
And Paul
brilliant.
Mescal, of course. Of course, is very talented.
Did you see Normal People?
I love Normal People.
Oh, so good, isn't it?
But that other movie he made with the little girl, the daughter.
Oh, yeah, After Sun.
After Sun was
Yeah.
genius.
Yeah.
His work in that is really beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the Japanese movie I saw this year, or the Korean movie earlier in the year. I'm trying to remember the movies I saw at the beginning of the year. Was Mission Impossible this year? The
23. Twas, yeah, it was. Yeah.
I liked it.
I liked it as well, to be fair.
I liked it a lot. I thought really great set piece action sequences.
Yeah.
Mike, you have one last question to ask Martha, I believe.
I do. It's a really easy question. It won't take any thinking whatsoever. But Martha Hackett, what does Star Trek mean to you?
Star Trek. What does Star Trek mean to me? Well, Star Trek has a lot of different touchstones for me. This is not a simple question, by the way, but it has a lot of different touchstones for me because I always admired the show, and I really did feel that when I got hired to act on it, that I was going to be part of a small part of TV history, because I do believe it is an important part of TV history, and the sort of, in its simplest, most basic parameters, it tells a story and has dreams for a world that I think we should still be invested in.
Yeah.
You know, that it wants the best of us, not the worst of us. And it's been an inclusive show before that term was ever used. And I don't know, I'm proud to have been a part of it.
Brilliant.
That's awesome.
Mike, I'm going to let you do the outro now because you're such a practiced hand at doing it now, so I won't deprive you of that.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for tuning into this week's episode of The War Room. I have been your host, Mike Overton, with...
No, you haven't. I was your host. I was your host. You were the co-host.
Fine. I have been your co-host, Mike Overton, with our wonderful host, Joseph Hurley, and our incredible guest, Martha Hackett. Until next time, remember, you can check out our website, clonestarpod.com, for amazing fan art and blogs created by you, our fans. Until next time, live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.